All right, everybody, thank you very much for coming back almost on time. So I'm going to start the next session. It's a different kind of conversation that talks about influencing and how influencing is not just about marketing. In fact, it's an impact strategy. It defines modern leadership. And who would know better than our speaker today, Danielle Moodie. And she is a host of Woke AF, as well as a commentator at MSNBC. And she will speak about how influence can help expand leadership and build power. So please put your hands together for our speaker, Danielle Moodie, and the moderator, 𝐁𝐨𝐥𝐿, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Asa. Thank you. Thanks. Danielle Moodie. This is a bit of a fangirl moment for me, which I've told you at least 3 or 4 times, but you are such a cool deal. You are the real deal. Podcast host, media maven, pundit on every and any cable news TV show worth watching. I would love for us to know, we're here in the Silicon Valley today. A lot of us have technical expertise. We've done a lot of cool things. We've had exits, we've founded companies. Very few of us can do what you do. Tell us about how you started your journey and maybe what inspired you, what got you into doing what you do and influencing. How did you do it?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. What got me into it is I recognize that there are 2 ways in order to shift hearts and minds and advance this country. And one is through policy, which is where I started my work in Washington, D.C. I worked on Capitol Hill, worked on social justice issues, LGBTQ equality issues, education policy. And I realized that storytelling and connecting people with actual stories and moving outside of numbers and statistics is really what helped people really understand various issues. And so for me, I got into media by starting to go on television to talk about different issues, different court cases that were coming up that had to do with racial identity, that had to do with queer identity. And through that, realized that, oh, I like this. And I enjoyed speaking, and I enjoyed trying to find different mediums to reach more and more people.
Yeah, now that's amazing, because I think that's the dream, right? You do something that you love and you realize that you can actually make money from it, right? And have influence from it. So that's amazing. I want to sort of touch on something you said, which is storytelling, because whether you're in business, whether you're in media, everyone's telling a story, right? You're in sales, you're telling a story. You're a CEO, you're telling a story and building a team. It's a skill, it's an art, it comes naturally to some people, and for some people they have to learn it. How did you do it, and did you learn it? If so, how do you do it?
So I was fortunate enough to go through a series of media trainings. I think that media training is really important regardless of whether or not you're going to find yourself on TV or giving podcast interviews or what have you. I think that it's really important to learn how to speak about yourself in a very real and confident way. You're at a conference right now, right? And so people are like, oh, what brings you here? What is it that you're doing? You want to be able to deliver that in what folks, traditionally call the elevator pitch, right? You want to be able to speak about yourself and the work that you're doing in a really engaging and thoughtful way. So working sometimes with a media coach, with an executive coach, can really help you have a clearer picture of who you are, what is it that you're doing, and what opportunities you want to be seeking in the future. So for me, it was being able to go through various media trainings to learn how to present both in person and on television, but to be able to really captivate audiences, really be able to tell a particular story through a particular lens and with like a finite amount of time. Because when you see people on TV, you have about 60 seconds to 90 seconds to be able to deliver a very complex point, and that is a skill that you develop.
Yeah, and I love that because like anything else, it's something that can be learned. You know, some people think when you get up on stage or like you do, you're on TV all the time and you're so passionate, so articulate, so charismatic, and we tend to look at people like you and think, well, she was born with it. She's just naturally good at it. But you're talking about media training and getting a media coach. I know that's something you do.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that? Like how
Sure.
people can get involved and if
Yeah, I think that it's first one, again, I say that media training is about how do I tell my story and where am I telling that story and what is the story that I want people to understand about me. You want to be able to go into spaces and have a presence, right? And leave a little something behind, like, oh, I want to talk to that person more. I want to connect with them. And for me, it was really what is uniquely mine? What perspectives do I have? Why is somebody calling me to be interviewed? Why are they asking my opinion? So, you know, it is funny to have developed a career now where my opinion is what I make my living off of, right? Like how I analyze politics and the world around us and how I try and educate other people on that. And so, you know, to find a media coach, to find an executive coach, again, regardless of what position you find yourself in your company or your firm, really is about advancing yourself, your career, and your message. And like, you are your own calling card, right? And so you want to be able to deliver your message, your story, your expertise in a way that, that leaves people wanting more.
Yeah, I love that. And so, you know, coming back to what you do, I think what made me, and I say it again, such a fangirl of your work, is you have perfected the art of personal brand and public good. And especially this day and age with everything going on, you know, I told Danielle we can't get political, but I'm going to say one thing and we can leave it at that. Fascism is upon us almost, guys. That's my opinion. But you know what? How do you balance that? You know, you want to be on mainstream media. You've been on mainstream media, but you also have a fantastic podcast. How do you balance that public good with the personal brand? How is that done? That's an art.
So, and thank you for that. I think that it has always been really important to me to do work that speaks to my integrity and speaks to the issues that I'm passionate about. And there's a reason why I developed my own independent media platforms. I go on mainstream, go into mainstream media and go on mainstream platforms when I'm trying to reach, you know, a more generalized audience. But creating an independent platform just allowed me to not have restrictions on the things that I want to say and how I want to say them. And particularly at a time that is increasingly dangerous. I don't want to use euphemisms that make people feel comfortable about the experiences that you're seeing in the headlines every single day. Things are rapidly changing in this country, and it's important to be able to articulate that in a very serious manner. And there are times when mainstream corporate media has very serious limitations on how you can deliver that information. So for me, you know, creating what I refer to as like my own media ecosystem, using, you know, I host 4 different podcasts. I have a Substack, so delivering, you know, content, written content, audio, video, meeting people where they are. There are some times when folks only have 60 seconds, right? So 60 seconds, then you're delivering that message on a TikTok because I'm trying to reach, you know, those that are in their 20s and 30s that are just coming into workspaces. So for me, it's about what is my signature message, and then what are the platforms that allow me to be able to increase my reach. And then that's kind of how I've created.
So creating that signature message and then disseminating it in the ways that fit the different audiences and the platforms that you create. So I have so many follow-up questions. You said something very interesting about integrity and maintaining integrity, and that's probably part of that core message. It seems harder and harder to do this day and age. I would love for you to either comment on that or tell me your thoughts about that.
I mean, look, we live in a time when not telling the truth can get you a lot of followers and can get you a lot of influence. but I'm somebody that likes to look at myself in the mirror and feel good about what it is that I say and what it is that I have to offer. And so, you know, at a time when you're being filled with a lot of saccharin, I think it is that moment where you have to ask yourself, what is the value that I want to be adding? What is it that I want to be remembered for? And I am a truth teller. And so whether or not that is going to be in front of millions of people or just a few people, it only takes a few people to shift their perspective to then develop the kind of ripple effect that turns into larger waves that create the kind of change that we want to see in this country. And so for me, it really, integrity is everything. And I have been asked, I've been told, you know, if you were to change your message like this, if you were to look like this, if you were to act like this, you know you could make so much more money. But to me, that is not what guides me. What guides me is my purpose, for better or for worse. And I want to be able to add value, particularly at a time when people are being largely misled, and that misleading information and disinformation is why we're in the state that we're in.
100%. And I would love to know if you're comfortable sharing any personal anecdote or experience that you had where either you had to hold back, whether it's on TV, like, you can't say this, Danielle, or that's not okay, cut that off, or where you didn't hold back and you're like, you know what, I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm going to go there. Tell
I
me.
probably have both of those types of stories. On, you know, when you go on television, the whole goal that people tell you is that you want to be invited back, right? And so to be invited back, you have to be a gracious guest. And there are times when I have been on with hosts that I disagree with, or that I don't think that they understand the severity of the issues that they're talking about, or they make light of them at a time when, like, you shouldn't be making light of them. And I will have a lot of pushback. And so there have been times when it was, you know, going on television and talking about, for instance, LGBTQ rights, and it being like, well, shouldn't this be up for debate? And I said, well, should your life be up for debate? Should whether or not you have the ability to live free to be decided upon by 9 justices? And if that has never been your experience, then you don't have the right to tell me about mine. Right. So there are times when I have been very forceful in the opinions that I have, and ask the counter questions to what is being posed to me. When people say, well, you know, you have opinion, we need, you know, more neutral voices and people that are not so, you know, so identified with the issue. And I say to myself, what does it mean to be neutral? Yeah. What is your idea of neutrality? And my perspective is what colors my experience and my analysis, as does everybody else's. So when you're talking about what is the norm and what is neutral, what are you actually saying? Right. And so really questioning people when they speak in that manner, like, oh, we need more generalists. No, we don't. We need actual people with lived experiences that other people can connect to. And so for me, those things are incredibly important. So I get the opportunity to do both. I can go on television and be extremely sanitized, and then I can speak on my platforms in a way that may offend some, but it may land really with others, because I don't mince words. Yeah.
And that changes lives, right? When you don't sanitize it and you find that niche, which is also a really cool thing in business. Like, how do you find that niche audience? Is it through networking? Is it through mentorship? Is it through the coaching, Danielle? But the fact that you have so many platforms that you've created, and you've got that core message, but you get your voice out there in such a phenomenal way. What is it? What's the secret? Is it just a lot of hard work? Is it a lot of courage? You're obviously an incredibly courageous person, but how do you do it?
I really appreciate that. How I do it is just, I go where I think that people are. And for me, you know, my average day, I am probably doing about 6 or 7 interviews. I'm making content all day. I'm interviewing folks, I'm being interviewed, I'm having conversations, I'm writing op-eds, and all of those, you know, different delineations. But it is about finding, what is my offering? And I think that that's the question that people need to ask themselves is like, what am I offering? Again, whether you are an independent creator or you're working in a firm or a corporation, what separates you from the pack? And once you've figured out like what is your separating factor, what is your unique factor, then you can begin to, and I use this word, but I mean it in a positive way, exploit the value that you have, right? And figure out what spaces can I show up in that allow me to show up as, one, my authentic self, but also in a way that my message falls on ears that actually need to be hearing it. Because that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people, they want to be everywhere and talking about everything, but it's just like, to what extent? To what extent is it adding value to your message? And who needs to hear your message? Because I think that when you refine what your offering is, then you think to yourself, well, who is the audience for this? And then once you understand who the audience is, then you ask yourself, well, then where is that audience, right? And so for me, it is, I want to be able to shift hearts and minds. I want to be able to have people have that kind of head tilt moment that, I didn't think about it that way. It doesn't mean that they need to rigorously agree with me on everything, but I want there to be an expansiveness in the way that people are thinking, because we're not. Right? We're actually being conditioned not to think. We're being conditioned to just follow, right? Or to be very passive participants in our lives and in our democracy, and that's frankly why we're here. So it is, for me, it's like, where are those people that are, they've said, politics, not really interested, it doesn't really have anything to do with me, and I want to show you, actually, it has everything to do with everything that you're doing, and it's tied, and it isn't impolite to have these conversations. It's actually necessary and critical.
And that's courageous. That's, incredibly courageous to be out there and put yourself out there and say, no, listen, because this is important. You don't think it's important right now, but it is, and let me convince you of that. Where do you get your courage from?
I think I get it from my family, right? I'm a child of immigrants. My family came to the United States in 1970 from Jamaica, and they've worked tirelessly to try and build a life here that they wouldn't have been able to do so in Jamaica. And I think that, because they took so much courage to go pick up their lives, right, and plant themselves in a foreign country to build, it's like, what do I do with the risks that they took, right? And how do I honor my family in terms of what they did and sacrificed in order to make a life for the next generation? So for me, that's where the courage comes from, because my grandmother said, we're gonna move to America, right? And then scouted out all of these different areas around the country and said, okay, we're going to New York and we're gonna build a life here. And I said, how do you decide to do that? Yeah. Like even now I toy with the idea, I'd like to live abroad, and I think about it being such an overwhelming prospect. And my grandmother did it and brought our entire family, right? Like as this, I used to call her, she's since passed, but she was like our explorer, right? That let me go explore this new world, and we're going to build a life here. And I think that that's courageous. Yeah. So for me, I think it comes from that.
And I love that. And by a show of hands, let me ask everyone, are you a child of an immigrant? I am. That's a lot of us here. Anyone an immigrant? Look at that. Almost everyone in this room. And so, I grew up in this country. My parents came here in the 80s. I was just a baby. And there's that shared space of being other, right? We're a minority. And I think you're absolutely right, Danielle. There's a courage in that, and there's a beauty in that, and there's such a richness to that. And that's actually why I'm such a fangirl, because this is what she brings to the table. Let's shift the conversation a little bit to technology, because you're so good at that. With the podcasts, in the age of AI, do you use AI to come up with scripts? Is it a tool?
So I will tell you that I am still a person that's relatively terrified of AI. And I say it I say it because I make my living off of my brain and my creativity. Right. And there is something about the way in which people are not using AI in what I think is ethical. right? Like there were several articles that just came out of young people being like, oh, my college essays, like it's just about how well I can put a prompt into ChatGPT. And I'm like, what? Like you're like, how are people gonna decide who to let in and who not? Like you're prompting, you know? So for me, I because I am a solopreneur, that I am trying to figure out how best to utilize technology that isn't about relying so heavily, but kind of in partnership, right? With AI to be able to produce more. And I think that to me is where I see the value is in how can I scale, right, as just one person to put out as much as I possibly can, and how can I use AI to scale in that way. So that is it for me. But the idea that people are just using it like write an email or write an essay or and not have any thought whatsoever is terrifying.
It is terrifying, and it becomes very impersonal. I mean, I think we've all used it, and you know, one click, reply to this message, and it's like, oh God, what have I just written? Like, this is embarrassing. I can't send this, right? So the technology has some ways to go, and it is terrifying, lots of possibility. But I think that's what you do better, because it still can't replicate what someone who's charismatic and knows their stuff actually does. Would love to hear any personal stories or anecdotes in relation to technology, whether it's on podcasting or what you've used to help leverage your brand. Is podcasting the best way to go? Is it strategic networking? Is it being on TV? If you're someone who's trying to get your voice out there, what do you think?
One of the platforms that I'm actually loving for myself right now, just because of the way that AI has integrated into the platform and the ability to like have this almost like a built-in video producer, a built-in, editor, is Substack. Substack has been able to open up over the last several months with the ability to go live on there and actually engage with your audiences. Once you do video, then the AI generator creates all of these clips. These are things that I used to pay people to do for me, right? Is here's this, space that I was in, generate these 60-second clips or 90-second clips, and now Substack does it automatically for you. Or you're able to and produce transcripts. So people like to be able to read, they like to be able to hear and see, and the way that Substack is kind of creating its own microverse is really fascinating. And I think a lot of other platforms are either going to fall by the wayside or have to figure out how to have these really integrated components that content creators really need, and it cuts down on so much of our time, which means that you can create more. If I'm not worried about creating a video and then I have an hour-long live, then I want to turn that into micro segments and all of these things, that takes like another couple of hours to do. Substack has now eliminated that time that I would take to do that, and it's done the work for me. So I think that in terms of technologies and being able to do that, that to me, again, podcasting has become a very, what's the word, like overrun space right now. Like literally everyone and their mother has a podcast. And so it's really hard to kind of stand out. And also people really like video. So, and video has taken over.
Real format,
like
right?
Video format and visual formats. So being able to, again, figure out what are the platforms that allow you to spread your message the furthest, while also being able to have these integrated technologies that allow you to optimize, because everything is about, I know it's such an overused
Silicon Valley
word.
buzzword, we love it here.
I know it's
Optimize.
so overused, but it really is about optimizing your time and understanding as a creator how valuable your time is. So anything that I can cut out, right, and not have to, again, use my own resources to pay for other people to do these things, the better off you are. So for me, it has been, I went on Substack 3 months ago, and I have learned so much so quickly. The same thing similarly with YouTube. I was not a YouTube, I'm like a late YouTube convert, and now I host 3 different shows on YouTube. And again, that aspect of being able to connect with audiences in real time is something that podcasting doesn't allow you to do. You're kind of just speaking out into the void. And I want real-time feedback, particularly in this political climate and moment. What are people thinking, feeling, sensing, worrying about? I get real feedback in real time.
No, you said something funny. You said the buzzword optimize. You also said scale, another Silicon Valley buzzword.
Maybe I belong here.
You totally belong here. We could go on and on about buzzwords. But I want to ask you another question. What gives you hope today with everything going on? We're a very hopeful society here in the Silicon Valley. We think we can solve everything with technology. We can't, but we'll never stop trying. But what gives you hope today?
Honestly, there is this funny. There is a quote that Bill Clinton said like 100 years ago at this point.
Love Bill Clinton.
Yeah, but he said it, and it's always been something that stuck in my mind, where he said that there's nothing that is wrong with America that can't be fixed by what's right with America. And that gives me hope, is that what we have to understand is that a lot of what we see has been filtered and curated for fear, right? And you think that it's everyone and it's every way and it's everywhere because of how it's coming in. There is a lot, and that is true, and I'm not minimizing that. But there are a lot of people that have become activated during this time, that are building community in different ways in this time, that are really using their voice and their power in their individual platform during this time. That gives me a lot of hope that what we've been programmed to see as collective apathy is actually not really true, right? That there is another side. You have to just look for it. And I see it a lot. There's a lot of incredible art that's being created in this moment. I think that too, when we're in periods of darkness and periods of strife, is when a lot of art, poetry, novels, fiction, is created. And that is incredibly inspiring, even as art is being attacked, even as critical thinking is being attacked, that there is more attention than paid to it.
So would love to know your opinion as a thought leader in the United States. What about this moment in time gives you the most hope, and what are you most fearful of, whether it's in terms of media, influence? What are your thoughts?
I will tell you, the other day, I traveled to the UK and to Paris. It took a few days, and I just wanted to leave. I had never been more terrified to leave the country and come back than I had been. I'm a US citizen, born here, have the blue passport, but because of the work that I do and how vocal I am, I didn't bring my computer. I wiped some of my content on my phone because of all of the headlines of people being detained.
Danielle, that's not easy because you're a content creator.
Correct. And it's very easy to just Google while I'm standing in front of you. And so I was like, oh my goodness, if I leave, am I going to be able to come back in? And if I come back in, am I going to be detained? They're detaining people for writing op-eds and for attending protests. Like, you can look at all of my work, and if you wanted to decide that I was anti-American, you absolutely could, which is completely to the contrary. But again, it's whose perspective and who has the power. So fearful, that. I'm very fearful about what is going to happen to the future of media, to free speech, and the ability to tell stories and to critique America in the way that I have made a career of doing so. So that makes me very fearful. At the same time, I think that now my voice and voices like mine are more important than ever. So on the hopeful side, it is that people are recognizing that what they could take for granted over the course of their life, that just, America will always be America. I don't really have to think about it. It's kind of the way I say to people, you never have to really think about your breath until you've lost it. You never really have to worry about your heartbeat until, there is a murmur or there's something wrong with it. It just kind of goes. But now I think because of the crisis of consciousness that we're having in this country, that people are more tapped in and have to be more tapped in and more vigilant. And so to me, That's what gives me hope, is that you have to look at both sides of the coin that we're being presented with.
Absolutely. So we want to open it up to Q&A, if that's all right with you. But before that, just a couple rapid fire, this or that questions, Danielle. Okay. So one public figure who commands influence better than anyone else out there today, in your opinion?
Ooh.
It's more a thoughtful question, not a rapid fire. I kind of misled you.
No, I know. I'm like, who is commanding
At any
influence?
time, actually.
At any time?
Could be Bill Clinton.
You know, honestly, I will say Michelle Obama.
Yes.
Every time that Michelle Obama speaks, anytime that she does anything, I think that she commands a level of attention.
Yep.
And she's still a figure that is largely beloved.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and she has a freeness to her now in the way that she's able to communicate her true feelings after leaving the White House that I really appreciate.
I think everyone would agree if you look at poll numbers alone still for her, she's incredible. And just from a media and influence perspective, I think you talked about authenticity and messaging. She's a master. She's a master at it. Okay. What's more dangerous, Danielle? Silence or noise? I think I know, but.
Silence.
Silence, why?
Because I think that if you are too fearful to speak up, you think that your silence is going to protect you, as Toni Morrison once said, and it is not. Your silence will not protect you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would tend to 100% agree. Are there any media trends that people are underestimating right now, other than Substack and the technologies? Or any trends in general in terms of messaging that should be on our radar if we're looking to build our platforms?
You know, I think that people are always interested in going with what is hot and what is next, but I think it's, again, trying to match the platform to your purpose, right? Instead of trying to find purpose on a platform, if that makes sense. So again, if you're somebody that wants to be in front of the camera, that, you know, wants to curate images or videos or pictures, like what is the best space to do that for you? And you don't necessarily have to jump on to the next hottest thing. You can become an expert in that one particular area. You don't have to be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, I love that. I want to open it up to Q&A. I'm not sure if there are mics here, but if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand. Before we do that, Danielle, tell us the name of your podcast and everything we want to find you on.
Sure. So I host 3. So the Danielle Moodie Show is on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Danielle Moodie, and that is a live show, 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. I co-host Democracyish with 𝐔𝐥𝐿𝐼 Ali, and that is on Monday and Fridays on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And I also host a show called As the World Churns. That is new. It formerly was The New Abnormal, connected with The Daily Beast, but now we've gone independent, my co-host Andy Levy and I, and we do that. And I do two shows on Substack right now. One is The Check-In, which is 12 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, and that's with 𝐁𝐨𝐥𝐿, and we're checking in on our emotions and the emotional toll of this moment. So it's not a headline news show.
Love that.
It's more so how are we feeling and what are we doing with all of these big feelings. And then I host another kind of midweek check-in with 𝐔𝐥𝐿 Ali, and that is on Substack, 3 p.m. Eastern. We just did a really fun video that is up now, which was our analysis on the movie Sinners. So we just did our first movie review that people really loved because it was us putting a political lens on culture, and it was fun. Your guys' chemistry and the brilliance you both bring together is off the chain, guys. It's 𝐔𝐥𝐿𝐼 Ali and Danielle Moodie, the rock stars. You guys should all check it out. �WAJ is one of my favorite. Is one of my favorite people to talk to on a regular basis because the conversation just you guys are just, it's two brilliant minds, guys, on a free podcast. Like, it's insane how we just get access to this. It's super, super cool. Let's open it up to Q&A. I saw a bunch of hands. Yes, please. Yeah, come, you want to come on up? I can hand you the mic. Totally informal here. Anyone else who has questions, just queue up here and we can hand you the mic. And let's try and keep it to just a few seconds.
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Reba. My question was, can you talk a little bit about maintaining your integrity? Oh, can you talk a little bit about maintaining your integrity, values, personal identity, brand, but like in a corporate world when your employer might like very actively contradict your values, like, and you're spending 40, 60 hours a week there, like how do you kind of continue to maintain that?
That's a great question. I have not spent a ton of time in corporate America, and for me, it was because I wanted to be able to work with different companies and firms that were like-minded. And so it is, if you're in a space that has, for instance, what is it, ERGs, right, your employee resource groups, or you have different kind of initiatives, or you want to start them, I think that that is something that a lot of places and spaces need. So it's like try and link with like-minded people inside of your corporation to promote and build programs and community that has the opportunity to show your bosses, your what it means to kind of be able to bring your whole self into the space, and how that could be good for their bottom line by being able to showcase values in a different way.
Hi, my name is Saira. I have two questions. One is, so when you started your content creation journey to where you are right now, there must have been times when you changed your content process and you decided, this is not what I want to talk about. I want to shift and do something else. How did you get to that point where you're like, I'm very solid right now on what I want to produce for the world? That's my first question. And second is, which is your favorite monetization platform and why?
Oh, good, okay. Both good questions. So when I first started content creating, I was just doing podcasting, audio only podcasting, and this was like in the 2010s. And it was primarily on, the intersection between race, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And I wanted to have a much more expansive lens on America, still using my own lived experiences, but I wanted to talk about democracy in general and how we were shaping it. And so I began little by little to just write more on America as a whole, on a critique on our democracy, on critical thinking, the ways in which we were losing critical thinking, the ways in which social media was taking away from our ability to create community. And so I started to write, and that writing then had people start to ask me to come on their shows more. So it was like I started podcasting and I got attention in that way, but then I started to formulate those opinions in a different way and pitch them, because there's something about having the written word and like just having that out there that formulates your opinions in a different way, and it's also considered in a weightier context. So for me, it was the ability to do that. And then what is my favorite monetizing platform right now? It's a cross between YouTube and Substack. YouTube, you had to hit I think it's a certain amount of hours before you are then invited into the partnership program. Substack, to be honest, like you didn't have to have anything. You just had to create a tiered tiered membership. And what I do, and this is something that I got from 𝐷𝐭𝐢 actually, which is that we make all of our content free, right? I don't want to ever have payment as a barrier to people accessing information. And I think that that is like a really big problem, right? Is that all of like New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, blah, 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 everything is a paywall, right? So you're blocking people's ability to get information. By making it free, people who have resources and have the ability to pay now feel like, oh, I'm investing in this person. I'm investing in independent media. I can do that for $8 a month. I can do that with a super sticker at, $20 or $10 or $2 that I have. There are people that come into my shows every day and give $2. that $2 like begins to add up. Like it seems like small and what have you, but it's just like when people see that you're giving this content for free, right? It shifts the way that they want to invest in you, and then they get to feel like they are a part of what you're creating. So that's what I do.
I've never heard Silicon Valley buzzwords like monetize sound so good. Next question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Danielle. This is Rehan Mir talking about the podcast. I have my own podcast, and I'm coming along wearing that podcast. It's called Voices with Purpose. So my question to you is, like, I think if I recall the conversation when you started, you said, like, when you get invited to those television interviews, you, to a certain extent, you sanitize the content that you want to be delivering. But when it comes to your own YouTube podcast, you speak your heart out. So my question is, like, does that affect your credibility in terms of like how you're being perceived by the audience?
So very good question. When I say sanitize, I am much more, when I'm on my own independent platforms, the way that I express myself is much more visceral, right? There are times when I am very angry, right? And I express that anger and rage. There are times when I feel a lot of grief, right? For instance, most recently, it was learning that 4-year-old migrant children were being forced to represent themselves in immigration court and weren't being provided with public defenders, and seeing the images of a 4-year-old sitting before a judge that does not speak English, right, let alone know what the word government means at 4, and sitting there. And it was a horrible, horrible moment to be able to share that with my audience of what was happening. So for me, it was a moment to hold like very heavy grief and hold that space not only for myself, but for the people that were watching. Now, when I'm on television, right, there are ways in which mainstream media has developed tropes around Black women expressing way too much emotion or not expressing enough. And so I don't allow my emotions to be weaponized in that way. So I am very clear and matter of fact that still conveys a level of emotion, but not as visceral and not as wrought as I will on platforms that I command myself, and know that I'm not being used to present a certain type of image. I'm in control of the image that I am putting out.
Yeah. These were great questions. Danielle, are there any parting thoughts or anything you want to leave our audience with? This was fantastic.
I just, the only thing that I would say is that each and every single one of us, regardless of whether you have one person that follows you or 100 or 100,000, each of us have a voice and a perspective that is worth sharing. Yeah. And I feel like if you can find what is my message, what is the space that I want to take up, and where is that going to be of service and of use, and to who and for what, do that. And I think that now is the time not to be silent, not to be alone in the fear that you may have, but into creating community and connecting, because we're more powerful together than we are separately. And we need community and community engagement and connection more now than we ever have.
Well, thank you for being part of the open community. And Wajahat's been here, you've been here. I feel like we've got a rock star pair in you guys. Everyone, thank you to Danielle Moodie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, I believe we're gonna call up Trust Mental Health right now, or is that later? Okay, I think it's later. Is it right now? It's actually a perfect segue from Danielle Moodie. Danielle Moodie, thank you.
Thank you.
Come on down. Did you do